Hello, one and all, and welcome back to One Hub Racing. And now, with Season 18 very much looming, we're going to see these guys, the entire Pinnacle tier, on track together to see what they are really made of. This is the pre-season race, and it is coming to you from the Silverstone International Circuit, or as it's known in the game, as Breton Short. And with the drivers queuing up to get things started for the season, we have a lot of action in front of us to run you through the action here tonight. It is myself, Daniel Hoggard, otherwise known as Daka, and alongside me in the commentary box is Matt, otherwise known as Indecisive Mackie. Matt, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, sir. How are you? Welcome to the Pinnacle team.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction, and yes, I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to see how things all unfold tonight. And so here around Breton Short, and this track is such a unique challenge for the drivers. It's very short, of course. It cuts out essentially half of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. I believe it only has 8 corners or so on the lap as well. So yeah, very, very small lap. They're very compact. And lap times you're going to see around here in the sort of 43 to 44 second range. And so that really makes things very unique around here. It's going to be fascinating to see how things unfold. And Matt, coming to you, before we get things underway, what are your expectations for how this race will unfold? How do you reckon the drivers are going to cope with the unique challenge this track provides?
Well, it's going to teach them very quickly about track limits, because although it looks like an easy track, it's really not, especially at the exit of turn 4 where the cones are in the pictures you can see there. There's definitely some tricky lines to take, and you can't take liberties with it. It is a short track, but you can easily pick up 3-6 seconds very easily, so that would really hamper your races. But looking forward to seeing how the reigning champion gets on in the coming season and see how he can take to this challenge. Everyone's going for him.
Yes, certainly. Everyone lining up, and that's going to be fascinating. We have, yes, a wide variety of drivers, a lot of them returning from the Pinnacle tier, some returning from old faces in the league, some completely new to the league, and others being bumped up from the Precision tier, the second top tier here in One Hub. So yes, we have that wide variety, and this is of course going to be the first opportunity we're going to get as commentators, you guys are going to get as viewers, and the drivers themselves are going to get at seeing where they all stacked up. And looking at the media day, I can certainly say that a lot of the drivers were just very excited to see these guys, see each other out on track, see how they all compared against each other, because of course a lot of these guys familiar with one another on the track. Of course they were throughout the last season, but others aren't, and so particularly for those new boys out there, it's going to be fascinating to see where they all unfold. A track as well that's so short in length, the lap time's going to be very close in qualifying. That should be very, very hotly contested. Can't wait to get into it, Matt.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one as well. There should be plenty of battles to choose from. Wheel-to-wheel racing is going to be a lot of it, and very often, and bring it on. And let's hope it stays dry out there, of course, because being Silverstone, there is an element of probability of rain at some point.
Yeah, certainly. I think we saw that in one of the earlier tiers. I think it may have been the points tier that had rain in qualifying that, of course, disrupted their ability to get around the track. So I'm sure the drivers will be hoping for a bit of an easier time of it then. Dry weather, of course, it is pre-season, but that doesn't mean that we're going to eliminate the weather. It is on dynamic, as you can probably see in the lobby settings, 100% race distance here at Silverstone, 52 laps of this circuit. To see how things are going to unfold. And here at Silverstone, typically it's tire degradation pretty low around here usually, and I think the same goes for the international circuit as well as the Grand Prix circuit. So you shouldn't see too many funny strategies in qualifying, or to by extension the race, but it's going to be very interesting to see what the guys further down the grid are going to opt for with their 3 choice of tyres. So that is going to be very, very fascinating to behold then, And of course, qualifying first up will be get underway, I imagine, very, very shortly, maybe just a few minutes or even seconds time then. We have 15 drivers in the lobby looking to take on this track, and qualifying is going to be very unique here, Matt, because not only, of course, are these guys all searching for the fastest lap times possible, as, of course, they're trying to also stay away from each other out on the track, because it's such a short track, and everyone's going to go out at the same time at the end of the session, trying to get those lap times in. Staying out of everyone's way is going to be a challenge here, and getting the right track position could be adamant as to how you get your fastest times in.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole unique challenge towards the end of the session. But don't panic, because it says 100%. It's still going to be about 45 minutes, 40 minutes, possibly, for a race. So it's really such a short lap that don't panic with 100%. You're going to be here the same amount of time as you usually would. But it is going to be very, very hectic in the final few seconds to try and get your final lap in to see if you can get yourself a little bit further up the grid or on provisional pole. But the weather, of course, and getting out of the way, it's kind of like Baku, but very much closer together. So that's going to be chaos, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully, of course, it's chaos, but of course, we're going to have to wait and see how things are going. I guess we can also get the thoughts of some of our drivers ahead of it. Of course, Jay Luke, one of the drivers here in the Pinnacle tier, was making some of his thoughts known ahead of this evening. He was saying, of course, that, well, and quite a lot of him echoing the thoughts then, of course, everyone, when they asked to set their goals for the pre-season race, that was one of the questions in the media day. Not a lot of people I noticed that were putting concrete goals down. It seemed like for the most part, that they were just trying to gauge where they were at relative to each other. So I don't think these guys are going to be hunting for the results necessarily, but of course gunning to get that comparison out there. And I think it's going to be a good comparison to get, especially of course if the race is dry. As you mentioned, of course, that is far from a guarantee here at Silverstone, but we're going to get loaded into it then. So qualifying will be upon us. Such unique challenge, such unique circumstances ahead of the drivers then as we get into it. Qualifying first off, 18 minutes, and it's going to be that ever-going pursuit for that pole position then and the front of the grid then. And of course, there as we get loaded into it, we have a lot to look forward to, no doubt about that. Not a full grid, a few drivers still missing from the lineup, but that's not going to detract, I'm sure, from the action out there on track as we look to get into it. So Britton Short is going to be in front of us. We'll see how things are going to go down out there. But of course, qualifying first up, the lap time is going to be so close here, and with such a competitive division, you have to say, Matt, that even the tiniest of mistakes from any of the drivers could have major implications as to where they line up on the grids.
Yes, definitely. I made a small mistake earlier and it cost me 3 tenths, even though it was a tiny, tiny error. But of course, that could be negated by the such a small differential in lap time between these guys anyhow up in this tier. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they bounce back from any early mistakes and if they have any difficulties in qualifying. But for now, it looks like it's a dry session, so that's better than we had down in Prospect. It was very dark and overcast there, but they have the sun, so that could help with tie temps. But anyhow, let's get started.
Yeah, very pristine conditions, it must be said then, ahead of this first qualifying session. 15 drivers it is then, looking to take on this racing circuit. Can't wait to get things underway here. So of course we're getting a bit of a wait here before everyone is going to head out on the track. Now of course you're going to see of course a lot of the different teams on display here. Of course the way that the team contracts work here in One Hub is that the 10 drivers, essentially with the best stats, the best career stats here in One Hub, they get an opportunity to pick their team. And of course, the better stats you have, the more chance you're going to have of getting into one of the higher placed teams. And so we have essentially 10 first drivers, if you will, for all of these teams. And they are Netsky for Mercedes, Lakitu for Ferrari, Khalifa for Red Bull, Kodzo for McLaren, Samba for Renault, Jules for Racing Point, J. Luke for AlphaTauri, Glock for Alfa Romeo, Fatality for us, and Arnaud for Williams. So that is how things are going to stand in front of the season. We're going to get their teammates revealed later on as we look to get things started then with the medium tires on TRT. Tom Martin as he heads it through farm and now braking into Village Court. You can see how much he used the curve to turn in the car then. Traction out of Village and of course these mediums on and then through the bridge and then up to Beckett's on the exit and just about able to keep it on track then and then powering out with DRS down the Hanger Straight back onto the main circuit then at phenomenal pace at DRS getting up towards the Stoke corner then, probably the biggest overtaking opportunity on the entire track. Massive overtake from Tomar, snaps it, tank slapper, off goes the Renault and straight away in the session we have it out there. So Tomar having to recover that car then, so the Renault driver could be a cropper out there on the track early on then. And so that is how things stand early on. Of course, a lot more to be seen then. VAR drills on these soft tyres. Now heading around then up to the line, and the Racing Point crosses is a 44-1. Then in fatality just goes a little bit quicker. ART Kyle storming to the top then on a 43A. Expect some fast and frantic lap times to come in then. Everyone looking to make an early impression here in qualifying. So let's see them all fly in. And ART Josh storming to that provisional pole then. 43.5, of course. I don't think you're going to see massive margins around here. So every second, every moment of the lap is going to count to absolute adamance then. So keep an eye out to see how everything stands out there on the track then as we look towards. We're now 3 minutes into the session and it's Vienna now to the top then on a 43.5. Just a couple of hundreds clear of ART Josh. So he goes top early then, it's Vienna. But a lot of lads coming in though, but the Alfa Romeo off to a great start then. Pole position for the moment, we're very, very tight there. But 43.5 provisional for the Alfa. But still a lot of lap times to come in. There's still such early days in the session.
Yep, very much early days, and what goes P3 there in the Alfa Romeo with the 43.6, so there's going to be some very tight real estate there in the interim time, but Tom went back to the pits there and he just taste of what's to come later on in the session. He just couldn't get off the racing line to go into the pits because there were so many cars trying to set their laps. He was just having to wait and wait and wait, and he could well have got disqualified on the day, but he didn't. So let's just see what Cliffy does as he crosses the line and puts himself in P10 in the Williams.
Yeah, I think that lap time is very representative. He is just going to go again, and still on the medium tires lapping around. I'm noticing a lot of drivers as well that are opting to do 2 or even more runs because, of course, they have a lot more fuel to play with. The tyres probably going to be better for longer as well, than more lap time. So, of course, these drivers now looking to get some more in this. Netsky, of course, goes to the top for the moment, and he's going into the season as one of the favourites then in the Mercedes. Crossing the line, it's Rafa behind. He is just a couple of hundreds out. Of course, Rafa, a returning driver to One Hub, puts himself on the provisional front row then. It's top 4 covered by just less than a tenth of a second. That is how close things are at the moment, but it is Netsky on top. That he was one of the fastest drivers in the pre-season. He is the first driver for the coveted Mercedes seat. You know the pedigree that this man has, and further down the field, and we still have a lot more talent on display, and you're seeing that already. Then 8 drivers so far and to the 43s at Elite Club, but Netsky on top for the moment. Looks like things are beginning to quiet down. There are fewer drivers on laps at the moment. Netsky up top then, 43.4. He's making an early impression, but still the top 4 within a tenth of a second. This is going to be insanely close. Still 30 minutes to go. Who knows how the rest of the session is going to play out, Matt?
No, none of us know, and that is what's making this extra exciting as Cliffy has gone again. And yes, it wasn't a representative time. He would have put himself higher up there in the previous lap, but he just can't get an improvement on those medium tyres. But I'm sure he'll come later on the softs. But for now, he stays P12, and Larkin is finally on a lap. Is one of the latest to do so, and Tomar, of course, has gone again on the soft tyres. So we'll see what he does after his big incident earlier on in the session.
Yeah, certainly. Let's keep an eye out. And as a Larkin now heading through Club Corner, then traction critical through the exit and keeps it nice and clean. Does the McLaren lap man crosses, but goes only 10th at the moment and on a 44 flat. He was a very strong driver last season in One Hub, so we'll see if he's going to try and repeat those fortunes. But for the moment, in P10, and of course you mentioned Tomar this time out there on the soft competitor tires. I think he's back kicked off the lap though. Yeah, kind of coasting the car around, but now heading up to the line. Looks like that's going to be a bit more of a push lap then for the Renault driver. Coming up to the line, we're going to leave it to you to take us through it, Matt. Then incident early on. Let's see what we're going to do. Over the line goes Tomar. Can he push himself farther up the board then? Let's see what he can do. 14th at the moment. Let's see if he pushes himself up higher.
Well, I'm sure he can. He takes it through the same first section as the full track, and instead of going right, you go left, and then you just go straight onto the short track, and then you see the cones, which marks off the section after Maggots and Beckett's before you get to this straight on the full track. But of course, on this one, that's not his 3.9 seconds up through sector 2, so this could well be a push to the top 4 or 5 for Tom after his early session. He seems to have been put in the rear view mirror as he gets past all the traffic, which is in the final sector, but won't be a problem for him. And let's see what he can actually do as he crosses the line with a 43.5, and that is good enough for P2 at the moment.
Yeah, just 4 thousandths clear of Rafa and P3 at the moment then, so that is how things stand early on. But a lot of drivers there on lap times. We're getting into that middle phase of the session, so let's see what everyone has up their sleeves. What can they bring to the table here then? So coming round up towards the final corner, Larkin's on another lap time then. He does improve then, but stays in 11th then on a 43.8 behind him. Coming through as one of the Red Bulls. Josh coming up to the line now, currently 4th for the moment there, crosses the line, goes 2nd, and again just fractionally clear of Tom Har by 1/100th of a second. That is how tight things are then. Further down the line, Rafa coming round, but I think he has made an error on that lap to invalidate. He's going again then, pushing to greater and better things, and the Ferrari out there for the moment then, as now we have Bjarti Luke Lira, who comes around the final corner and validates on the exit of Club Corner, puts himself, it would have been a 43.831, but to put himself into P10, but ultimately that is not going to be good enough. He is going to have to go again later on then, as they're coming up to the line. I think that's Glock that he's just crossing to start a flying lap. But Josh is around again. What can he do this time? Is it pole position? No, it's not. He's just half a 10th down for the moment then. Still looking at more. Netsky's on the lap. He's backed off though. He's got enough fuel though to commit to another flying lap. So he holds pole position, but they're all queuing up as Rafa, as I say that, goes to the top on a 43.457. He goes fastest by just 100th of a second. The margins so remarkably tight then. It is now just the top 8 within 0.2 of a second. Incredibly took close. Rafa up top though from Netsky. Still a lot more to be seen there, but Lakitu, his de facto teammate for this session in, coming up now through Stows. I think there was an improvement. I think that may well have been Glock, who puts himself just 3 thousandths clear of Netsky. P3 then. His teammate Vienna crossed the line and he is on a 43.5 for the moment then. Lakitu comes up to the line, not an improvement then. 7th for the moment. The reigning champion, who of course won a slew of races last season, not able to put himself up there for the moment. Still a long way to go though, but Rafa on top then early. And as I say, that Netsky gets absurdly close then, just less than 200ths of a second covering the top 3. Wow, this is going to be tight.
Yeah, well, we said at the top it's going to be slim pickings between each position, but I didn't think we meant it was going to be this quickly, this close, this soon. So this is fascinating to see. Yeah, you see Lakitu reigning champion, and he's not, didn't have it all his own way at times last season, but managed to cross the line in the optimum positions from where he started the race. So that'll look to continue. But we saw a lot of Mercedes on pole, and that could continue if Netsky can just improve a little bit. He was the run-up in the championship, and he's not happy with that. He wanted more, as he said in the pre-race conferences. He can't just be happy with second, and Vienna's in the wall there. He's had a little bit of a moment, just as Tom did earlier. So no damage done, I don't think. I think he's okay for now.
And that mistake came seconds after he put himself up towards the top of the timesheets then by nearly 1/10 of a second, which in this world seems to be an absolute lifetime at the moment then, as we are going to keep an eye out on more lap times looking to come in later on. All but one of the drivers, that's Luke Lira, who is not yet in the 43, so competitive. I suspect the Williams man probably has a bit more in the tank as well. Vienna on top, and that's a great point you make about Netsky. He's clearly an ambitious man. He wants to win, and of course getting the better of Lakitu and the rest certainly could be very encouraging. But Vienna straight to the top and impressing for Alfa Romeo early on in the session, but still a lot more to be seen then. Just 7 minutes to go. Up to the line as the McLaren of Larkin goes up to 9th on a 43.619, and just a couple of thousand behind Lakito, who sits in the mid pack in P8 for the moment then, as now further down the road there Vapor Chris crosses in. He's also on a 43.610. So many drivers is in that region of the field as it continues to bunch up then as we get deep into the session now. And so we look for more then further down the order. Here Luke, who was actually fastest at one point, down in 14th for the moment, needs to try and find a little bit more speed then in the Alpha Tower, getting himself on to those brakes and getting it stopped, turned in nice, and then through the exit he goes as ART Kyle now round the final turn and cross the line. He goes 30 to the 43.7. That is not enough to put him up even higher. He's just behind Jules at the moment. VAR Jules right now. Fatality's also on the lap. It's so chaotic, Matt. Cars everywhere. Vienna on that pole position, of course. It is only pre-season, but a huge psychological edge will getting that pole. Vienna will be desperate to hold on to it, but who knows how things are going to go then. 5 minutes to go, and any one of these drivers you suspect could grab that front spot on the grid.
Yeah, I was just watching the progress of the guy in 15th place. He was on a great lap, and he just ran into a couple of cars coming around the corner, so he had to back out of that lap. But he has gone again, and I'm looking forward to seeing him also join the 43 club, which would mean every car is under 44 seconds, which is quite impressive when you think about it.
But look like you're just invalidating then coming out of Stowe corner. Looks like he's got a lot of pace, but just can't hook the lap up right now, so he's gonna have to try go again later on then. Got some more drivers on laps at the moment then. MRAV is just gearing up to start one then. Further down the line, we've got ERT Georgia one who is very slightly up in that first sector. Let's see if he can continue to press the envelope then as he heads it on to the hangar straight then, really pushing for the track limits, just keeps it on though. DRS now wide open, heading down this hangar straight, just 300s up at the moment, but even that is putting him on the front row. Can he find a bit more out of this last sector? Really attacks and uses the grass on the entry to Stowe corner and just about holds it together. Now heading it in to Vale and End Club corner, of course. Traction is key over here. The seashore ships in a 5th gear to find the grip for the rear tires. Cross the line, goes second on a 43.419 or 18 as it says on the tower over on the left hand side of the screen. So he goes P2 from the moment. Vienna's still on pole though, but a lot more to be seen for a lot of drivers. Vienna's pole hasn't fallen just yet, but just half a head clear then. Everyone gearing up to 4 minutes to go, and everyone now getting on to their final runs, I suspect then, with just a timer beginning to tick down at the moment then. A lot more to be seen. Vienna's pole time is going to be under pressure, I'm sure, but the pressure is on. One mistake could be costly. All these drivers gunning for it. The competition, you could say, for pole position is about to start then. Vienna on top, but that's going to be trouble then. 4 minutes, and I'm sure 4 minutes of chaotic action out there. Who is going to grab that pole position and get the early edge and psychological advantage ahead of the season?
Well, that is a very good question, and if we stay tuned for the next 3 minutes and 45 seconds or so, we will find out the answer to that. But I saw a story of cars going to the pit lane as Rafa's now a little bit closer in 3rd place. Just a little bit more to find, and then he could be on the front row of the grid. But there's definitely some cars about to come back out on track for their final run of the session, and of course you could do multiple laps here, but of course with tyre wear in the race that might not necessarily be a good idea, but we'll see what happens as these final few moments tick away for some of the drivers in the garage, just to compose themselves and picturise their perfect run, and let's see if they can pull it off.
These guys all pursuing the perfect lap. Of course, you say you cannot reach it, but these guys are pressing for perfection, and perfection is what they'll need in such a quality field then. So let's see what they have in over then. First up to the line, VAR Jules, 13th at the moment, cross the line, goes 8th then. Just a 10th of a second improvement and 5 places up. That is what we're dealing with then. That is what at stake, and the level of competition we have then. Netsky is on a lap, he's 2/10 down, he's backed off, he's going to look to try and go again then. Look, Lira is out there for the moment as Jules retires to the session. That's coming through the loop, the bridge before the crossover on to the main circuit, and he's going off then, and ultimately will start no higher than 8th to the line. As look there, he does improve but still remains in 15th place. Everyone now into the 43s and covered by just 4/10 of a second. So let's see now who's going to be next up to challenge then. Tom R, who was up on a lap then but just going invalid then, he's going to back off and go at it yet again then. One of the Alpha Rails to the line. That was Glock then, who still remains MP5 then. 43.4 is the time. Let's see when he can push through towards the end then. Vienna, current professional pole, invalidated, will not improve. Has to go again, and the pressure mounts. 2 minutes to go on the clock. Neski though is flying in the Mercedes now. Coming up to the line, just needs a 10. Their pole fades and adds some. Goes fastest on a 43.305. That's the benchmark. Can anyone else live up to it in these final time moments here at qualifying? Faber crest the line then. Cross is unable to improve. Again, has to hang it out on the line for one more time. Then Glock now coming round Club Corner then. Up to the line is the Alfa Romeo and does improve, but only minutely. Remains at P5 then. 1 minute to go. Let's see what these guys have in store for us then. They're all queuing up towards the final turns then as they prepare to get their flying laps up and underway. Who's the furthest along on a flying lap at the moment? I see ERT Josh is on one. He's just early on in it though, trying to improve. Of course, the Red Bull man P3 at the moment is pressing on now to the top as Neski retires. That's in the pit lane. He is pleased, he's content, he is settling for that pole time. The question is, can anyone else match it? Can anyone better it? So who is going to be first up to step up to the mark? Looks like it's going to be Fatality. And the first pass then coming up to the line now. He crosses but doesn't improve. Then remains P11 for the moment. 43.6 is the lap time then. Josh crosses, lost out final sector. Unable to improve himself. Then remains in P3. So stands in the Red Bull then. 43.4. 1 is the time then. McLaren, Larkin crosses again. Just not able to improve the track. Not quite with these guys. He needed to get the car underneath him. Rafa crosses. He is going to force to go again. Just 10 seconds to go before the clock expires. And now we get everyone's final run to the line in. I think it is Cliffy the Williams is a 10th up, goes second on a 43.359. Just 3 thousandths clear of Vienna and behind him. Fatality's going again, but again unable to improve. Next up is a Red Bull. It's going to be Josh up to the line then. He does improve, but it's invalid. He would have put himself up onto the front row of the grid there, but ultimately is unable to push himself further along than that. Then as Larkin spinning around the final turn, and the McLaren's going to have to try and recover, and he would improve then. Lakita's backed up to the line. Rava crosses again, just unable to find that extra time then. I'm not sure if anyone else has still got more laps in them. I think that is just about it for qualifying as the clouds begin to cover on this session. A dramatic session it was. Netsky grabs that pole position and he's going to look to go one better. Lakita, the champion, struggling a bit in 6th place. The margin is incredibly close. If that's what qualifying had, who knows what the race has to offer later on.
Well, definitely, but it's definitely got a lot darker as well, so it's probably a good thing that the session is over because rain could well be coming. But yeah, we saw a lot of this last season. Netsky would get a pole position, or his teammate in the Mercedes would as well, and then somehow Lakita would always come through the field and end up winning a few races that other drivers may not have done. So very well deserved championship last season for Lakita. Can he make it 2 in a row? Can Nesky go one better? Find out this season.
Of course, any one of these drivers can take this championship, and that is what we've been proven here tonight. To run you through the results, and it is Netsky on pole position, Cliffy alongside him on the front row, Vienna, the former version of pole setter, settles for 3rd, then ERT Josh just behind him, then Rafa and Lakito, the 2 Ferraris up on the 3rd row again, then P5 and P6 then as Glock and Tomar, Jules and Larkin round at the top 10, and with 3 choice cars are going to be Fatality, Khalifa, Kyle, Chris and Luke Lira, less than half a second covering the field then. That's what we have in offer for tonight then. It is in the end of Netsky on that pole position. Can he hold on to it though? He wasn't able to convert a lot of his strong qualifyings. He wanted tonight. Pre-season in front of us. Let's get it started then. But before we do get into the race, I do want to unfortunately lower the tone a little bit here because as I'm sure we all know, I want to take this opportunity. We want to take this opportunity to pay our respects to His Highness Prince Philip, who unfortunately passed away earlier today at the age of 99. And so to commemorate his service to the nation amongst his very long and very, very prosperous life. We will be, both myself and Matt will remain silent until we get the cars back around to the grid. So, yes, to His Highness Prince Philip, may he rest in peace, and now we will pay our respects. And so we say goodbye to Prince Philip and we thank his services to the nation. Now, of course, we're going to go forward, though, with the finally looking to get onto the grid for the pre-season race, Season 18, just in front of us. As now we get the 15 drivers lining up on the grid. You can see the tire choice, instead Fatality and Vapor Crest going for the mediums. Everyone else outside the top 10 on these soft tires. We'll see how things are going to unfold. And it's now everyone is lined up, locked and loaded, and looking to get going there. For the first time we see these guys on track together, we have 5 lights. Long haul, but pre-season at Silverstone is underway from the front of the grid. Neski looks to go away pretty well. Then he's got Vienna charging right the outside. It was only going in front of Cliff. He faced back on the inside lane and reclaims that second position. Further back than the Ferrari's battling then as Lakito looks to descend it to the inside of EOT Josh, and Red Bull and Ferrari come together as the front wings fly then as they headed now, heading in to the Anger Street, and it is still Neski that leads the way, and he's got Cliffy right on him. You can see the front wing damage. I think I may even Larkin have got caught up in that. Then he's the McLaren driver under pressure from Tomar. The Renault gets him alongside him up the front there. Clevy diving to the inside of the snow, looking for the race lead then, as now he draws alongside Neski up towards the field. They are side by side on the brakes. Then Neski is deep on the inside line. Cleffy runs it wide and a massive oversteer for the Williams. Now it's Vienna charging up and around the outside. They make wheel-to-wheel contact over the line to start the second lap, but the inside line into the Williams. The place will be the Williams. Just holds on in front of Vienna behind it, but Neski still leads then. You can see them all building up into a trade early on, and Larkin did have to come into the pit lane. Damage on the opening lap. Neski holds on to the lead. Had to really fight for it though then. Vienna, Cliffy throwing everything at him. What a chaotic start. The order still remaining the same, but my oh my, that was organised chaos. Neski leads the race, but he's got practically the entire field hunting him down then into Stowe for the second time.
Yep, he certainly does, and there was definitely some contact in the midfield there, and I'm surprised there was only one car coming in. And of course, it is pre-season, but regular season rules apply. It is a mandatory 2-stop race tonight, and looks like we could have some weather change later on in the race. It's getting overcast, and let's see what it does, because it is England after all. We know it's possible, but Jules is the quickest man on track at the moment, but I'm not sure what's going on with your timing now. Mine's all over the place, as it usually is for the first few laps, but I'm sure you'll settle down in a moment to give us a more accurate representation of who is where.
Well, I think it did have a bit of a bug out for me, but I think it has begun to settle itself out just about now. It's up the front of the grid. Brent Cliffy is attacking again, heading into Stowe. Then he clears the Mercedes then on the entry into Stowe then, but Neske's going to fade it back then, looking to the inside line, trying to break late then and trying to reclaim the lead, but Cliffy holds it around the outside. Neske trying to get back underneath and then swinging out then through club corner. Again, the leaders go wheel to wheel over the line. There's nothing to separate them then as they barrel heading into the first turn. Side by side, then who's going to yield it in? It's going to be Cliffy round the outside, who maintains the race lead as they head into Village then on lap 4 then. That is dramatic. These guys are no holding back in pre-season further down the road. As I think that's Kyle that's gone round there. Maybe he came into contact with Jules. I saw them side by side back then. Kyle spinning around and having to recover. He's got Luke Lira right on the back of him then. I think Luke Lira has unfortunately disconnected from the lobby. He doesn't seem to have control of his car as it stands right now. You can see the shine on the track then. It is certainly overcast, and we're going to have to look out to see if things are going to unfold. Of course, in one hub, it is the mandatory 2-stop race and a dry race then. But of course, if we have rain, everything thrown up in the air. But it is Cliffy who leads the race then. But everyone's sticking with him. The top 8 well within DRS range. Finding away here, Cliffy gets the lead. He's used a lot of his battery, and I think, Matt, the position at the front of the train, your most at threat, the guy second with DRS, can have a right one at hunting it down. Maintaining the lead is going to be extraordinarily difficult here at Britain.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's tricky anyway, especially with DRS available to all the drivers behind it. But here, specifically, with such a short lap, plenty of DRS overtaking opportunities as a yellow flag in Sector 2. I think that's just Carl at the back there having a little bit of a further issue. So I think he might be in this lap to change his tyres. But back to the front, we have Vienna on the back of Netsky, who is in the lead of a train, followed by Josh, Rafa and Lakitu behind him. So this could be a lot of positions changing very quickly in the early stage of this race, but credit to these boys. There's definitely going to be a lot more to come later on in the race. Who's going to have their mettle? Who's going to... Oh, well, that's a problem.
Cliffy from the front of the race then. That's a drop heading towards the break off onto the hanger straight, and the race leader in major trouble here then. ERT Cliffy lights up the rear tyres, spinning the car around and heartbreakingly dropping well down the order here. So Cliffy now falling way down then. He's got his teammate Luke Lero alongside him then at Ghost Car. That's bitter disappointment, and that shows the danger that every single one of these drivers has to put up with then. Lap 7 now underway, and it's still now the top 8 all bunched up then. The medium runners of fatality at Vapor Crest trying to hang on to this. Netsky still leads. Vieira, Josh then. Josh looking very threatening on the rear wing of Vieira. That's not quite going to come through. Netsky down to the front of the race then. He leads, but look at ERT Josh then, heading the rear wing. I don't think it's quite going to come through then. Realistically, all these guys have DRS. Going to be difficult to get through. Further down the order, by the way, Glock, he went in for hard tires, as did Cliffy, of course, after that mistake. So Netsky leads the way, still holding on to the front, but that from Cliffy just shows you can make the tiniest of error, and it can have the biggest of consequences. Cliffy's going to come out the pit lane pretty much a lap down then. Heartbreaking, and the man that was at the front of the race dropping back then. That's not going to help his competence in front of the season. That's disaster for ERT Cliffy. Netsky out to the front of the race, but better disappointment for the Williams man.
Yeah, very much disappointment in the short term, but hopefully long term he can forget about this, as it is a pre-season race and no one is really going to remember that come the end of the season, except the driver who does the small mistake, of course. And it's up to him how he bounces back when the season starts properly next week in Canada. But back to today, we have a lot of fights on, and we saw this quite often last season, as I want to repeat my point from Polly Netsky, sort of may start on pole, but he doesn't always have the necessary race pace to stay ahead. But it helps that he's got such a short lap and he can just position his car wherever he wants, and these are going to be tricky for some of these guys to pass Netsky. He is pretty hard to overtake, but not impossible. And Vienna got a little bit of a dirty air there coming down to turn 1, but managed to keep on track, so that's good to see. And there's 2 Ferraris in the top 5, which is a rare sight these days.
Yeah, but certainly, of course, both Rafa and Lakitu, very classy drivers as we have our first time penalty in the race. That goes to Fatality, the leading medium starter at the moment then. So he's running nicely out there, but that penalty is not going to help him one bit, and he's got pressure for Braver Crescent behind him. The racing point, though, not quite near enough to challenge just yet. These guys, of course, not quite been able to match the raw race pace of the drivers in front, as you'd expect, of course, and stars versus medium in the early stages is only going to go one way, unfortunately. Still looking, though, to the heavens out there. The overcast conditions haven't let off one bit. Still very cloudy over the circuit, and we're going to see how things evolve, my apologies. But Netsky, though, leading the way then. They've got backmarker traffic. I think that's Glock just in front. He's also had a disaster. And the Alfa Romeo, he's been caught by the race leaders as it stands then. They also run the train now down to Tom Morris. Jules beginning to get detached a little bit, but Netsky still dragging them along then. Vienna, Josh has looked very threatening in the early part of the lap then, as Netsky now getting in front of Glock. They're going through, I think he's out of the session, unfortunately. So Glock dropping back then. Netsky out to the front of the race, and he leads from Vienna in there as Alfa Romeo laps Alfa Romeo. Netsky still leading the way. These guys are plugging along nicely on the softs then. Not much overtaking, but they're all finely poised. But you can see the conditions. They haven't decided to lift. The clouds still very threatening over the circuit. The question is, are any rain conditions going to come to fruition, or will it remain dry? So far it's remained cloudy. It'll stay that way though.
Well, it's as good, good as bad as any to anyone. Whether it's going to stay like this or change or get warmer or the rain's going to come, it's anybody's guess. And the medium runners, I should say, are well placed, if I could use English for a moment, well placed to keep going until the rain comes, if it does indeed come. And that's not going to help you cause their Jules with the speeding in the pit lane. It is tricky, of course, because sometimes the little box by the side of the pit lane is no numbers, just a black box, so that's difficult to know what speed you're supposed to be at. But anyway, there's not really an excuse for speeding in the pit lane this early on in a race. But hey, never mind, I'm not out there for a reason, these guys are, so let's see how they come back from that. But Lakitu is lining up his teammate on the night, but of course I should make a point that at this stage they're not guaranteed to have these drivers in exactly the same cars, because some are using this as a trial to see how the drivers without a contract do to get one. So let's just see how many of these drivers impress the team leaders enough to get offered a teammate seat.
Yeah, of course, the 10 team leaders that I mentioned earlier, they are all guaranteed to seat them, but the other 10 drivers far from it then. Lakitu's side then, we saw as well Khalifa Jules going, and Jules of course picking up that speeding penalty, but he is still pressuring Khalifa there. It's very interesting actually, because these soft tires can go an awful lot further, but because these guys are coming early, it does speak to me that there may not actually be rain coming later on. I think these guys would have tried to stretch the tyres as long as possible if there was rain coming, or it's coming too late in the race for the soft tyres and they want to get a new set on then. But Jules a big oversteer moment, but it does tell me these guys not willing to stretch the tyres. Of course, they just want to get those two mandatory pit stops out of the way then. As Lakitu emerges, he is some way in front of Khalifa Jules to chase him down in a big slow cars entering the pit lane. Josh Rafatomo, and so it's Netsky and Vienna that's there from the front, and this is going to be interesting. How powerful is the undercut? Of course, the medium tires, cold tires, but it is a very busy pit lane. And then here on the 13th lap, so everyone diving in. We'll see who's going to get it first. It's going to be mediums for our match with virtually all of them. It is Josh from Rafa, and where will these guys emerge relative to Lakitu, who was running right behind his teammate, came in a lap earlier, so maybe there was a bit of communication between these guys. But now heading out the pit lane, Josh is going to take off that pit limiter, so it's a difficult pit exit, and you got to make sure you don't put it into the wall then. But Josh onto the throttle then, and Lakitu will easily get in front, I think, then jumping clear as the Ferrari of Josh, and he is behind Rafa, so that is how powerful the undercut is. Just one lap it's going to be, and as Netsky Vienna come in for the lead, you sense they're going to be under threat. Lakitu down to the front then, that undercut is going to work wonders. Netsky and Vienna are going to be in trouble though. One lap longer, seemingly on these tires, could be a big loss, so Netsky Vienna may be under real threat from the Ferrari of Lakitu behind.
Yep, that's always a risky take, trying to do the undercut. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but there was a little bit of an issue for Rafa and the Renault there, as the Renault just couldn't slow down in time and push the Ferrari over the speed limit into the pit lane, so he will have a penalty to serve later on in the race. Maybe he just served it and that's why he's came out behind his teammate, but Vienna comes out and Rafa just manages to throw it down the inside and avoid contact as the pit lane meets the racing line there. That is very very, you got to have some deep breaths when you go through there.
Yes, certainly did. Of course, emerging at high speed side by side. We also saw Lakitu. He just got the jump on Netsky, and behind it, just 4 tenths. So between these guys, they are going at it right to the wire here. Further down the order, then Jules and Khalifa going at it. And Jules gets in front of the Red Bull driver, who's trying to fight back at him, looking at and into the Vale and Club Corner, but unable to quite get through for the moment. And away goes the Racing Point on slightly older tires than some of the drivers in front. Of course, trying to go for that undercut. Big effort needed then to try and bridge that gap. 2 seconds to Vienna in front then, who sits in the moment around the rear ring of Rafa, who wasn't quite able to get through out of the pit lane. Further down the order, Larkin has gone off again, and he was in battle with Tomar. So not sure if Renault and McLaren have come together on the track there, but Tomar does get the move done on Larkin. Has now got ART Kyle for a couple behind, as well as Lakita on the back of the AI car of Luke Lira, who I imagine will get out of the way fairly nicely. Of course, some of these drivers have disconnected, the likes of Luke Lira and also Glock. It's very unfortunate to see, because of course we wanted to get a good representation. A few drivers not here tonight, so we only really get a good idea from some of the drivers rather than all of them. But if anything, that's very exciting going into the season, Matt. We know what some of these drivers can do. We're seeing how they go right now, and currently Lakitu again strategizing his way to the front, but of course penalties could work against him. But Lakitu leading the way. But going back to my point earlier, of course these guys, bit of a mess we're heading into the season, so we know some of them are going to unfold but not others, and also the fact this track may not be the most representative, so a lot of unknowns heading into the season. Can't wait to see how things unfold. And it is Lakitu on the net race lead. Fatality Vapor Chris yet to come in for the moment there. They're still powering out then, but there's a lot to look forward to in front of the season. If this has shown anything, it's going to be incredibly tight. Can't wait to see everyone out on track then in Canada in a week's time. Who knows how that's going to unfold.
Well, exactly. There's a lot more danger there. You've got the wall of champions that you don't hit, and that's very inviting to some of these cars. Sometimes they just can't help themselves as they come out of the final chicane and just clip it, and that's going to cause a lot of damage for people. And if you're slightly wrong, you could put 2-3 cars out of the race through no one's fault. It just happens. But that's next week, but we've got a lot of action still to come this week. And of course, we have Netsky versus Lakitu again, which we saw a lot of last season, and it looks like it's going to continue this week and beyond, which is going to be sensational battling for these two drivers and us here in the commentary box, and I can't wait for that. But Josh is also on the back of this battle, so look out for this as well, a Red Bull.
Yeah, he is hounding the Mercedes of Netsky behind as Larkin over the penalty. You're seeing a lot of penalties being racked up then. Let's run you through it. So Fatality and Chris then, who are well in front as Larkin actually retires. That's into the pit lane, and so he's had enough for tonight, unfortunately then. So that's another driver that we have out of the way then. It shouldn't bring out a safety car of any sorts, but he's out running further in the order. But you can see then, in terms of this net lead trade, Lakitu with a penalty, both Netsky and Josh completely clean. Rafa, of course, we saw that speeding penalty that he picked up in rather unfortunate circumstances heading into the pit lane, so he's got one time. Vienna completely clean, so that is how things are as it stands in this quintet for the lead of the race. They all run in tandem for the moment, but the penalties are going to make the difference. So Netsky has that over Lakitu as it stands right now. A lot to play for though. These guys a little bit quicker than the race. It is Fatality and Vapor Crest who are still out there at the moment, so they're still powering on then. Stretch these mediums out. Maybe if the red's ready, they're trying to go towards it, but at the moment they haven't dived in just yet. Still powering on, and the well, we're not sure as it stands as to whether the rain's going to come then. As it stands right now, it doesn't look like there's any signs of it, but the cloud has been unrelenting and has stayed the entire time, and of course that threat is always there. So we'll see how things unfold then. The cloud's still looming over the circuit, and rain coming in up to a point could be really handy for our visitors. If it comes in at the right point, they could maintain that 17-second advantage, but it all depends on the timing and whether the rain comes or whether it's not there. But we know this is Britain, weather's so unpredictable, who knows what's going to happen. These drivers are going to have to be on their toes as well.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure some of them have packed an umbrella in the back just in the event that happens, but some of the mechanics are just eagerly looking out into seeing what happens. But it looks like in the distance there is some sunshine to come, so hopefully if there is any rain it will be quickly dispersed off by the clearer conditions. But as you say, the clouds are unrelenting at this point, but they're not getting any worse at this stage, so that's good news for the drivers, and temperatures for the tyres will be even better to handle.
Yeah, they can just focus on the driving and the moment then out on the track then. Lakitu flying away at the front of the train, and these guys are roughly a second a lap quicker, I would say, than the guys in front. Of course, we don't have access to tasks, but I would just estimate that with my own caveman human high. But as it stands right now, that gap still sitting a pretty around 16 seconds, but coming down fast then. We're going to see if these guys are willing to battle, because at the moment, they all seem content, and Netscape behind Lakitu is poised to sit there as they now catch up to Glock's AI car yet again. Then going through, and so Lakitu has a bit of DRS to boost himself along then. These guys still are running in tandem. They've clearly all got the pace to stick with each other, but they're not going for it just yet then. And so Lakitu needs Netscape. Again, these guys go at it. Lakitu with 6 race victories last season. We're feeling confident, but Netscape still chasing him down all the way here. 6 tenths the gap, but I think Netscape is waiting then. He's got a bit more battery than Lakitu. He's waiting for when the time is right then to strike, because at the moment Lakitu is unthreatened, but I think these guys all have the capabilities to get past, but right now they're just content to sit in the train as it stands.
Yeah, of course it is the battle for the net lead, and they are content to just sit there and acquire the lead when Fatality pits very shortly. As you saw, the other one in front of him has just come in. I think it was Chris there, and now coming out in P10, so that's a good position for him, a good first stint, and Fatality's gone one more lap, so he will be in shortly. Of course, the tyres can't go forever, but you have to pit twice just to reinforce the point. You'll be surprised how many drivers forgot that last season.
Yeah, I mean, especially a track like this where tire degradation is quite low, it can certainly be tempting just to run a bit of a more conventional strategy. But of course, you do have to run those 2 stops out there as well. You can see actually Netscape getting very close to the rear wing of Lakitu now. He's burned a bit more battery as well then, and so he's hounding the Ferrari as he can attack, heading on to the hangar street then. Ferrari from Mercedes, Lakitu punching it wide then, heading off of Beckett's and powering away then. Looks like he has just about enough. And the racing, I think he's used a bit of battery as well. Further down the order though, Jules having to defend from Khalifa, and again it's Racing Point versus Red Bull. Khalifa running round the outside into Stone, then gets in front before the corner. Can he sweep it a long way? Jules through the inside line. Khalifa is straight around the outside. They're brilliant, but Jules fading back, directly into the field. Breaks a little bit later, running back that corner, then bumping wheel to wheel through the accident, and Khalifa regains the position, and these guys are going at it out there on the circuit. But it is ERT Khalifa from VER Jules, but these guys willing to put it all on the line here, and the Racing Point is attacking again, sends it to the inside lane. Khalifa is up on the outside over the curb then, penalty, they touch, and round goes the Racing Point then. It was fierce racing between them, and ultimately it just went a step too far then. Khalifa tapping Jules around. Don't think you can really put too much blame on one driver. I think that was just a racing incident. They're gunning for that corner. They don't know the corner well, and ultimately they come together. A great battle, unfortunately, taken away from us. Khalifa now in front of Jules. Jules dropping behind Tom R then, and it's such a shame. These guys went at it for almost an entire lap. Back goes the Racing Point though, as now to the pit lane does come Khalifa. So fortunate to see these guys come together. Their braces both compromised. Brilliant battle, but ultimately not ending the way we wanted.
Yeah, unfortunately, but sometimes that happens. Wheel-to-wheel racing can get a bit like that. I didn't see anything particularly wrong with what either driver did, but unfortunately, Khalifa there has got damage. And one thing you should know about Khalifa is he loved an undercut last season, but it didn't work out on some occasions. But I don't know if he's going to change strategy in the races from next week. But I think that was a forced stop, as I say, with a little bit of wing damage. So he's switched strategy now. But let's go back to the front, and you still have Netsky half a second or so behind Lakitu, and that has also brought Josh into the play a little bit, although they have pulled away in the last lap or so while we were covering the Khalifa incident. But Rafa is behind Josh, and this is not over yet, and this is fantastic racing from most drivers on the grid that are still running. Unfortunately, Lalira didn't make it back in after he lagged out in qualifying, and you have Larkin who retired in the pits, so it wasn't his day, but still some runners out there, and this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, certainly. Still, this quintet runs up top. It is at risk of becoming a bit of a quartet because Vienna is struggling a little bit to live with the frantic pace of these race citizens. 9-10's back. He's going to dig into the stick on the rear wing of Rafa, who's going to try to turn it around, and he's going to try and attack Josh then. They all still run pretty much in tandem. And of course, Netsky may well be content to sit behind Lakitu, but because of course, Lakitu has that penalty. And so at the moment, he is dropping back. At the moment to P4 as it stands then. Both Netsky, Josh and Vienna a bit further back are going to be jumping in So he needs to try and press on and hope that some of the drivers behind are picking up penalties. Nevsky using a better battery then. He's just making sure he's doing enough to stay within it. But I don't think he's going to particularly go just yet. We're getting up towards the halfway point, or we're past the halfway point in the race, I should say then. Still a long way to go though. A very fast-paced race we're seeing at the international circuit in Silverstone. But Lakita's still calling on. Fatality is going well though up the front then. He's stretched these tyres, and you imagine he's gone long enough so he can easily do 2 sets of soft to the end. He'll come out some ways behind. It's about a 26.5-second pit loss here at Silverstone. So let's see what he can do. He's going to be a long way back from the leaders, but 2 sets of soft tyres come through. He'll have a lot of pace. Has he just lost a bit too much time to everyone? But I think getting at least a top 6 will be very possible as Nevsky now gets the penalty and things are equalised amongst the top 2 now.
Yeah, they certainly are, and Fatality's having a mighty stint there, but of course he does have 9 seconds of penalties to tack on at the end of his race, so he's going to just boost his confidence by running out in front, and it's good to see a Haas car in the front, not biased of course. But let's see, can Josh do anything about the drivers in front who both have penalties? He does not, the driver behind him does, so he's in a good position right now. Can he maintain this for the rest of the race?
But the problem is he has just slipped out of that 1 second DRS window. He's going to have to really work to get back within it then. 1.1 the gap that he's going to dig in and try and get up towards. But Nevsky, I think he's using that to try and pull away then. He has used a lot of battery up behind Lakita, who's really coming into his own race pace wise and digging in there. He's getting some DRS when he's counting some of the lap cars, and now up behind Khalifa in the Red Bull. And so he's making good work of that then. He's using it to stay in front now. Fatality has dived to the pit lane. I imagine it is going to be a set of soft tyres going on then. We'll see where he emerges. We'll see how far through he can fight. And when will the leaders come in? The answer is a couple of them in already. Josh and Vieira diving to the pit lane and looking to try and grab an undercut. Overtaking proving to be very difficult amongst the leaders. So they do dive in. Nevsky still right there with Lakita. Potentially both these guys coming in. Of course, Rafa behind is now detached from these guys. Of course, one of the Ferraris will have to stay out a little bit longer. Nevsky can use this to his advantage, but he's still stuck up behind the Ferrari as we have full course yellow. Someone's gone off heading through. I'm not sure who that was. I think that will be Jules, who's gone off on the pit straight. I'm not sure if he's came to get him in another car, but a full safety car deployed. This wildly changes the race now, the full complexion of it then, as now, as we just saw Fatality come in, he's been gifted one then. Josh and Vienna, of course, they do have to pit again, so that's very intriguing now. The race on its head then. Lakita, Nevsky, Rafa dive in. That safety car wildly changes things here in Silverstone.
Yeah, it certainly does. I was trying to figure out what happened to Jules, but it seems to have lost some bodywork, so he'll definitely be in, of course. And I'm sure a lot of people will pit because the safety car is out, but that's definitely changed the complexion of the rest of the race, and that's definite heavy damage for Jules as he can't even get it slowed down to make the pit lane. But can he avoid another penalty? Yes, he can. It's tricky to drive when you have no front wing, but credit to him. But that will put all the drivers back in it, of course. But if you've been lapped, unfortunately, you don't get that lap back. But that'll give him a little bit of, oh dear, that's not going to help Khalifa.
No.
Speeding under the safety car. You never want to see that, but sometimes it happens. This game's a bit broken sometimes for that, but sometimes it's the driver's fault, sometimes it isn't. But that's definitely, everyone's on soft tyres, so it's going to be softs to the end. For those that need to pit twice, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to come out on top of this battle, but it's great to see that Fatality's back at the front, although he's not going to stay there. He's just gone straight back in again. 2 stops, clever boy. Someone's thinking logically about this.
Yeah, getting both those mandatory stops out of the window. He will lose a lot of track position, but at least he won't lose an entire pit stop, I imagine. That's his way of thinking. So that promotes our previous racers up to the front of the race then. And of course, these guys are fresh out the pit lane. They've just now got up to the safety car. They're going to have to manage those tires. They're going to have to make sure they're keeping them in the right operating window for when we get back underway then. So this is going to bunch up the race then. This is going to bunch up the field. You can see the gap to the leader. Everyone but the AI car of Glock is on the lead lap. They will have that opportunity to get themselves back into the race. Glock's AI car is actually forming a bit of a break in the field then. He sits up by Vienna, so Rafa's going to have a bit of a gap to make up. We do get back on our way then, and so Jules is going to guide it round. Luke Lehrer, of course, the other car who's not got second pit stop, but of course he is an AI car as well. Will not be well, there's no points anyway, but he won't be accounting towards the results then. Of course, he is not in control of his own actions because he has a robot. But Lakitu, still up the front of the race, won't get back on racing this lap, I imagine, at the end of the next lap. So we'll have just about an 18-lap sprint to the checker flag, and Lakitu has led most of the second stint from Netsky, but it's those three drivers behind, you have to say, that are in the real driver's seat it stands in. Josh, Vienna, Rafa, 2 stops in their name and no penalties. They can press up to the front, guys, then. So it's really up to Lakitu and Netsky to pull out, but we've seen how even these guys are on pace. We saw how powerful the DRS is. So the guys with penalties, they're going to find it tough to break away, and you sense they're going to have to rely on Josh, Vienna, and Rafa to get penalties if they want any chance of finding the podium tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you have to look out for Khalifa, who's got a drive through, not just a 5-second penalty. He has to go through the pit lane an additional time, so that is pretty much ruined his afternoon unless there's late mayhem. He's still going to continue because Khalifa's he's like me, he doesn't know when to give up, but he's safety car in this lap, so you'll see Lakitu really come off the back of the safety car as that just does its own thing. They're warming the tyres to get racing again. Who's going to have the better restart? Will it be Netsky, will it be Lakitu, or will Josh be able to just stick with them and be a leader of this race on track? Of course, right now, if it ended, he would win the race anyway, but I think you'd want to win on track. But let's just see what happens at the restarts. Khalifa gets another penalty. He's having a shocking day today. Thank goodness it's just a pre-season race, but he won't want to go into the season opener on a low. Anyway, let's get back to the restart.
Away it goes Lakitu from the front of the field, and now everyone is going to go at it out on track then. But Lakitu got away well then, and Netsky trying to go with it then, using a bit more batteries than Mercedes to try and stay in contact. They all run in formation and nose to tail for the back in the order. Tomar a good restart. He is hassling the rear wing of Rafa, but so far not able to get through. No DRS just yet. They've got to make the difference, and they're going to make it now then, as Tomar really attacking the Ferrari. He also using that battery, that ERS to stay in front then as Netsky chases down Lakitu, not able to get near enough to the Ferrari, who still holds the race lead, and they look to go to war again, but it is Lakitu who leads the race, and we're seeing some gaps appearing early on, it must be said then, as we've got Faber Cress, who's been unable to quite stay with the race leaders, and Khalifa of course does a multitude of penalties to his name, and when a drive through still to serve, then the Red Bull is really struggling out then. He's going to drop, I imagine, back to the rear of the field then, but as for the leaders, it has stayed roughly in the same order then. It's Lakitu from Netsky, half a second covering them, and they're still going at it, but ERT Josh is still right in the driver's seat in half a second over the current race lead then. Diggy to try and stay with him further down the order. Jules and ART Kyle then, they're going to go at it. Jules again, and the wars, and this time it's a bit easier. He cruises past ART Kyle, who had to yield it. He's going to watch out for the recovering Cliffy and behind on medium tyres. A unique strategy, but let's see if it's going to pay off for the early race leader Cliffy. As further up the road then, Khalifa comes in, he serves that drive through. Lakitu still leads though, half a second clear. Netsky going, Josh struggling a little bit more to stay in contact. He's going to dig in here, he's going to keep with these guys, because if he subs out a DRS train, these top two will have a chance. Lakitu and Netsky look phenomenally quick, but they're going to dig in here. Just about 15 and a half laps to go. It's Lakitu from Netsky, these guys still going at it and trying to create a gap to the charging Red Bull of Josh in behind.
Yep, you have to try and create a gap when you have a penalty, and that's what I was trying to bridge earlier in Prospect. And I'm sure several drivers will be doing the same thing, especially you've got Tom, Chris, Fatality, Jules, they all have penalties and they're all nose to tail with each other on the track, so whoever has the least of them will probably come out in about 6th or 5th place, depending on what happens with the leaders. But of course Khalifa has just served his drive through, and he looks a very sad driver in that Red Bull as he just goes through the pit lane by himself with no one to even talk to or look at. He's just driving, doing his thing, and this is probably the worst track to get a drive through because it's such the nature of the pit lane anyhow. You wouldn't want to go through there more than 2 times unless you have a safety car, in which case you have a restop of course, but unfortunately that doesn't apply to drive through penalties, which you can't serve under a safety car. But back to the lead 2, they are nose to tail pretty much. If Netsky gets any closer, he could probably change gear for Lakitu.
Now let's see. if he can try and get him maneuver done though at the moment, because the Ferrari has held it back all throughout the race. He's got a bit more battery to use as well then, but the Mercedes man has the slips. He's throwing everything at him, but he is right on the rear wing, heading in to Village Corner, eating up that dirty air, but it's still hounding him then. Lakito though doesn't think to go defensive. He's not intimidated by the charge of the SC, the season 17 runner-up then. Of course, the season 17 champion able to hold it back. These two old names fading it out up at the front of the race with 410s covering them. K2 consistently looks to get better exits, heading onto the hangar straight, and he'll remain in front for the time being then. Maybe some drivers down the field won't have as good a fortunes then. Fatalities having a look out for the charging Jules behind. He's also attacking Faber Crest just up the road. These guys have slipped back from the top six, so it's a six-way scrap up at the front of the race as Jules gets a time penalty as he's chasing these guys down. Of course, any penalty will be majorly costly. You can see how things stand on your screen right now. That is how penalties are going to look now. The clean drivers in the race. There's only 3 clean drivers left, and they are all in that leading battle in that top fight up at the front of the field then. As Netsky still 410s back. He's using a lot of overtake though, but so is Lakito. He knows now the threat that the Mercedes possesses. He chases him up towards Stowe, but he is not near enough. So Lakito holds in front then, and still Netsky can't get through. Further down the order, Fatality. Faber Chris battling away then. Through goes Fatality now in front of the racing point. So the Haas moves up, and he's got a lot of penalties to his name, of course. He had to serve that second pit stop onto the safety car then, as now Jules attacking his teammate then round the rear wing. These guys though slipping back from the good in front then. Fatality a little bit wide though. Hey through club corner. Is Chris going to attack him into Abby? Surely not. He doesn't quite look to the inside. Doesn't get through though, as Netsky's still right with Lakito. But every time he seems to get close, Lakito is just a little bit better to this section here, heading onto the hangar straight. He has enough in hand. He's a little bit closer this time, Netsky. But Lakito's just so strong through turns 3 and 4 that ultimately Netsky can't get through and still frustrated at the rear wing of the Ferrari.
Yeah, he's got to be getting a little bit fed up of looking at the back of that car. He wants to be in front of it, especially after last season as well. He'll be thinking, not again. But if he just keeps calm and tries to make Lakito make the mistake, which we didn't really see a lot of last season, but we saw a lot of Lakito just having slightly better race pace to propel him to all those victories. He was never all his own way, but he managed to do what he needed to do to come out in front. But of course, Josh could have a massive say in what happens in this tune-up before the regular season starts next week, and Josh is having a great race today, as is Vienna and Rafa, of course. So this is brilliant stuff.
Yeah, they ran at P3, P4, P5, may well be in P1, P2, P3 by the end of the race, and it's Lakita, a massive slide on the entry, and so still, but he holds on to the car then. But the trio behind are very easily living with this pace, and so ultimately, if they just hang on in there, avoid penalties, then they will still be safe for those podium spots. And so the top two are going to have to dig deep here, and Netsky, I think, is looking to try and get through on Lakito. Battling will cost them both even more time then, but Netsky is right there with him now, heading into Village, but again Lakito sees him off then, and so strong for Village, he pulls clear by 4/10 of a second. He leads then. Netsky still throwing everything at it, but still just can't quite draw near enough then, but he has more battery to use than Lakito. But Lakito has responded to everything the Mercedes have thrown at him, but those penalties will cost them both dearly. Further down the order then, it's going to be Jules attacking Fatality now. The Haas on the defensive, the Racing Point on the offensive then, as he looks to the outside of the still then runs parallel then, going the long way round as Jules. Can he get it done? He's getting squeezed towards the exit, but he is through as Jules. It was a big air overseer moment. Had to concede it. He's going to have to look out for the charging Vapor Crest behind us. We have yellow. That is the RTKL that's going off there. There's a big overseer moment for Crest. Drops behind Cleffy, but the RTKL, big moment hiding out of Stowe Corner. And ultimately suffering now in the race then. He and the AlphaTauri is going to have to nurse the car around then. He hasn't got front wing damage, but he has lost a whole ton of ground then. But up at the front of the race, Lakito leads Netsky, leads Josh, leads Vienna, leads Rafa, leads Tom. That is your lead group then. Heading down to the wire here, but that's Lakito from Netsky then, still up front then. Half a second to gap, we're running out of laps and over the line with 8 to go. Is anything going to change? They're overtaking so difficult, and none of these guys able to get through just yet.
No, not yet, but keep going, because there's always an opportunity just ahead of you. As you can see the car in front, you've got to keep going and trying to make an overtake. But of course, Josh doesn't need to do anything, just sit there, and that'll take Vienna with him as well, and Rafa. So they just got to I think they're quite content to sit there for the moment, but if the opportunity comes in the next few laps, they will try and take it because laps are running out. As you say, we have a handful left, but this has been some very sensational racing. But you have Lakito and Netsky still pretty much as they were for about 20 laps now. This is, yeah, the Mercedes is definitely getting fed up with the back of that Ferrari. But hey, you know, although Vienna's just got a infringement there, so that's going to help Rafa enormously, and Vienna's going to have to try something very soon to mitigate the gap behind.
But the DRS train is going to make moving up so difficult. He's been glued to the rear wing of the Red Bull. He'd be fed up of that car, I suspect, at this stage. And so he's going to have to try and dig it deep here. And Lakito still from Netsky then. But he's used a bit more battery. So Netsky, when the time comes, he'll have the overtaking capabilities as now the sky's beginning to clear. That I'm seeing some breaks in the clouds. And so we're at last going to see sunshine on that Silverstone International Circuit. What a thrilling finale we have in store. Still, it is Lakito leading, but still, it is this man, ERT Josh, who sits in the pound seat there, but he's going to dig deep. He's going to stay within that DRS range and not allow that Mercedes to creep away up the road then, as Netsky still trying everything he can, every trick in the book to get into Lakito, but Lakito is wise to everything he has to offer. But can he keep it going for much longer? Netsky is closer this time. He's got more battery, and at last, is he going on the attack here? Netsky now with Lakito to the inside, letting into Stolen. Lakito from the outside trying to defend it. Netsky through on the tyre line. Lakito for the car. And making gets another penalty, and all of a sudden Lakito's podium chances crumbling here. The Ferrari going off then. He gave up the possession to Netsky, but ran way down a still corner. It's another penalty now. He's got 6 seconds at the moment then. He is dropping out of the podium as it stands. And heartbreak for Lakito, who ran at the front of this race. Netsky now charging away at the front then, doing everything to get out of that DRS range, give himself a fake chance here. Josh now with Lakito. Lakito drawing back. That's heartbreak for Ferrari. And all of a sudden his racing chances fall apart here at Silverstone.
Yeah, it's like I said, you got to keep trying to make an opportunity happen, because even Lakito's not perfect, especially around track limits at this. If you just put the pressure on, even if it is the beginning of a season, even former champions or current champions and defending champions sometimes crack under it. But that's good news for Josh, who's clean there, so he's going to jump. But I'm just trying to work out the gap. It's definitely not good for Lakito. He'd be happy this is just a pre-season race, but he won't be happy that he loses his podium on track limits.
I think as it stands right now, the net order is Josh, Rafa, I'd say Netsky, Vienna, Lakito. I think that's how the top 5 are unfolding. Tom Mara's got a lot of penalties, but I think he's doing enough as it stands to keep that gap over Jules, pursuing him then in 7th position. Of course, he has shown great pace as Jules then, but just had too much traffic to navigate. It's Lakito way to get through Stowe Corner. I think the grip is starting to leave the tyres. They are starting to go off, and the grip will be getting to fade, and so they're going to have to try and eke everything they can out of them then. Who've managed the tyres better? That can make a massive difference here. And that's battle up the front there, but we have just 3 laps to go, and it is still Netsky from the front of the race then, from Lakito now. It is the Mercedes who leads the way, but has been unable to break that critical 1 second gap that he needs. He may have an outside chance of getting 2nd place though, because Rafa is 2.5 seconds behind, and it's the 3 second gap that the current on-track racer needs then. But he has only got just over 2 laps to pull it off. That is Netsky, with Lakito chasing him when he may want to help out his teammate. He's going to try and throw everything at him, but it is still the Mercedes who leads the way by 0.6 of a second. He's got a lot of speed here, has Netsky, and he's showing it here then. Of course, Netsky, the pole setter for this race, running riot up at the front then, as Josh, interestingly enough, slipping back a little bit then. He's low on batteries, Josh then. Through Village, he's put off by the Alpha of Glock. 1.1 seconds, 1.2 seconds to Lakito in front then. Netsky's going to need a miracle here, but he's still pressing. Josh's got a bit of pressure. He's got to work for this one. He's not going to have all his own way. He has DRS quickly, but he's got Vienna chasing him down. This race not over. The wind's still not in the bag for Josh.
No, it's not in the bag, but he's doing just about enough to be in contention as we are approaching the final lap of the race. And of course, I've noticed that the clouds have started to disperse. The sunshine is bearing through, so that could have a catastrophic effect on some of the tyre grip, and this could be why Lakitu went a little bit wider, because the grip just wasn't there like it was earlier on in the race when the tyres and track was cooler. But we are on the final lap, so let's just see who's going to win this quite entertaining, sensational race. And Nevsky's sideways coming out of the corner, and that is Lakitu back into the lead, and Nevsky's had a moment. Oh dear.
That is going to be critical for Nevsky. Could be costing it. He was pushing to try and get in front of Rafa, but I think the chances may well be slipping away from him here. Lakitu is gunning up the front in 6 seconds of penalties, but he's doing all he can. There's Vienna now attacking Josh right to the lane here. Into the field, he breaks very, very late there, running right near to the Red Bull. They are level. Lakitu up to the line. He is going to win now. Dragon Silverstone. Nevsky crosses P2, but it is going to be ERT Josh just from Rafa, who came flying up to him in the end, but just ran out of time, ran out of space. Josh from Rafa. Nevsky does get the podium despite the last lap error. Vienna and Lakitu round at the top 5. Cliffy in the end keeps it clean. He does get P6. Great recovery from Cliffy. Jules P7, Tomar and P8. And the penalties did cost them in the end. Vaporcrest and Fatality round at the top 10. And we're waiting now for Khalifa and the A-car of Luke Lera and ART Kyle to cross the line. Brilliant race here at Silverstone. Incredibly closely fought. And if that's what pre-season has to offer, who knows what we got going on in a week's time now. Josh wins today, but my oh my, do they have to work for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Wins in this tier are not easy. You have to work for all of them, and I guess that's one way to get to the end of the race quicker. As Kyle just comes up in the final regular season points paying position. Vapor Chris gets the in-game driver of the day, but I'm not really sure. We'll have to think about driver of the day in a second, but
yep.
I think at this point we should thank our wonderful sponsors here. We have Liam RBS, we have Next Level Races, we have Vespertine, we have ERT, which sponsored the ERT Going Gets Tough award, and we have 3M, and they have a wonderful selection of prizes. 3M are giving some driving laps, most pole positions and most fastest laps in the season. I believe Next Level Racing are giving away a sim rig, and there's all sorts of other stuff, which is such an awesome prize to give away for all of them, and it's brilliant. So thanks to those guys.
Yeah, Liam RBS is sponsoring our trophies for this season, and Vespertine we are partnered with. Of course, they're going to sport our championship prizes on the whole, so look forward to that further down the line. Let's run us through the results. So it is Josh from Rafa, just 2/10 the gap over the line. What a race, and if that is, I'm sure, just a taster of what's to come later on. Nevsky is P3 on the road then. Vienna is 4th in the end from Lakitu, 5th then. Behind that is Cliffy, P6 then. Jules, Tomar, Vapor Chris, Fatality round at the top 10. Luke Blair in the AI car is in front of Vapor Kyle. Khalifa 13th, Glock 14, Larkin, of course, unfortunately unable to see out the checkered flag. We didn't get everyone finishing today, but I'm sure that is just going to make the season much more sweeter when it comes. But of course, be sure to be looking out for the race next week in Canada. But before we go back off the air, you did mention driver of the day. I'm going to come to you first then, Matt. Who would be your driver of the day, and what question do you have to ask them?
Well, there's quite a few standout candidates there, but I think I am going to go with the Williams driver today, who was leading very early on and just had a small mistake, dropped to the bottom, but still kept going and got a very respectable finish. So I'm going to ask him, did you just try something different, knowing that you had an instant and try and see what happens at the end, or did you have a plan to come back into the race later on?
Excellent stuff then. I think I'm just gonna, I may go a bit boring here. I'm gonna go with a race winner then from the race, ERT Josh. And my question to him was, what were the nerves like in those final few laps? You had certainly a lot of pressure from behind. What is it like to try and dig in, just about see out that race victory then as Rafa was chasing you down? But congratulations on the race victory as well, and of course thank you all for watching. Thank you to our sponsors and partners as well for supporting the stream as well, and also thank you very much to Matt. It's been a pleasure to commentate alongside you for tonight. But that is going to be pre-season in the books then. And the next thing we have to look forward to is going to be the first race of One Hub Racing Season 18 in Canada. So be sure not to miss that one. But I think that is just about everything said and done for tonight. So yet again, thank you all very much for watching. With this full season in front of us then, we have now got all the preparations out the way, and we just now have to prepare for what Season 18 has to offer. So, with everything said and done for tonight then, I have been Dan, otherwise known as Daka. He's been Matt alongside me, and until next time, we'll see you later.